Peter, you said that realization. Are we starting?
Sure.
You said that realization is just the beginning. What do you mean by that?
There's no end. With realization, you know that, though, that there's no end and no beginning. So what this is ongoingly what it is eternally. And you don't really appreciate that as it is, as astoundingly and profoundly as it is, until realization, which is actually nothing other than coming to see, coming to appreciate what this is and has always been. So it's not the achievement of some new condition, it's just a recognition of the only condition, the soul condition.
And when you talk about knowing, I mean, I guess I can speak from my own experience. There doesn't seem to be anything to know outside of what this is or the moment. Like that's where knowing is. That's what I would say, I guess.
Sure. There's nothing but knowing. Knowing is not the acquisition or the understanding of some information. Knowing is the fact of being. Being is through the act of knowing. Being is known, being knows itself, you could say. What we call experience is isness, is reality. And experience is a knowing. Experience is the knowing of experiencing. And some kind of knowing is something that is known or gained or understood in some conceptual or informational sense, or even intuitional sense, is a fallacy. There's no end of intuition, but intuition does not have a target. Intuition is like peeling layers of an onion. You never get to the core.
So the only part of the onion that's relevant is just the piece that's presenting itself right here.
Yeah, well, but relevant is not relevant.
Or maybe a better way to say that is like that can actually be known, or that is.
Well, it is the presence of transcendental reality. And it's not the only piece, because there is no other pieces. The whole notion of pieces is inaccurate. There's always the full presence of the totality of transcendental reality. That's what there is. This.
So knowing is not the knowing of some kind of information, but you were saying last time everything is incredibly information rich.
Sure.
What is information then? It's not.
Information is profundity. Information is infinite fractal meaningfulness. Information is intelligence.
and meaningfulness or the sense of the meaningfulness can be known, right?
Well, nothing but that can be known. That is always known. That's the raw material that all imagination is constructed out of. In other words, whatever you think is going on, all the specifics, the fact that we're in a house in Berkeley and blah 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 blah, is a fantasy constructed out of the raw fractal infinite information field, which is the profundity of being itself. Now, mind you, calling it the profundity of being itself may sound very nebulous, but it is. It's very nebulous. And yet, out of that nebulosity, all specifics are abstracted.
I was listening to an audio earlier today of one of your talks, and the woman was asking the question, was saying something about like everything was meaningful to her, and like even like the curve of a glass or something like that, just an incredible meaning. And so I was like, and then I get a massage after, and so. And then, like I'm trying to do the noticing when I'm getting the massage, and I've got my eyes closed, and I'm not quite sure if it's the woman's feet or her hands that are working on my back, and then there's a sort of there's my natural sort of impulse of wanting to resolve things into, oh, that's a hand, and that's that's whatever this structure of the back that is being touched in this way and that, right? And that's not necessarily meaningfulness. That's or it's kind of like an imagination that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resolving of that which is unresolvable.
And that's what you would call an apparent mode.
Yes.
But it's just a seeming resolving.
Yes. There's never an actual resolving. Actual resolving is impossible. It can't happen. But this is unresolvable. It's infinite. Literally infinite.
So how about in situations where like people claim to be around the presence of the guru, they experience some transcendental phenomena or some seemingly very special states or whatever. Is that just another sort of, there's a sort of fantasizing that's going on, or imagining?
Yes and no. People are always experiencing transcendental conditions and so on and so forth. Special states. There's nothing else to experience. But having a whole storyline that it's about when you're in certain conditions and not in other conditions is orienting to some kind of a Pavlovian conceptual conditioning. But all of so-called delusion and so-called unenlightenment is nothing but that, so it's no surprise. In other words, not recognizing the transcendental nature of this is conditioned and imagined into existence, because there's nothing but transcendental nature of it, and everyone recognizes it continuously because there's nothing else to recognize. There's nothing else to experience. But to pretend that you don't is a huge enterprise. It requires a lot of value added, so to speak.
It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You go down it and you never get out.
Well, that is all. Alice's rabbit hole.
So there's spiritual practices like the japa practice that because you're repeating the mantra over and over again, and it somehow pauses the mind, or it allows for a certain pausing of the mind, so the mind doesn't fantasize.
All of that's imaginary.
Mhm.
The mind is always paused and never paused. And it doesn't become more or less so when you're repeating words over or not repeating words over. I mean, all spiritual practices are all pretense. They're a viable way of exploring reality, but anything whatsoever is a viable way of exploring reality. Sitting around and drinking beer or taking LSD or shooting up heroin is a viable way to explore reality, or getting in a fight with your spouse or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. And there's no better or worse. The only thing that's relevant is the exercise of intelligence to see what is here to be seen, as opposed to settling for an erroneous and inaccurate fantasy.
The sort of spiritual practices that you prescribe are noticing practices, and I think you in one of the audios you talked about it's a way that sort of takes the mind along rather than negating the mind or trying to bypass the mind. Right?
Yeah, but that's always the case. The mind is always coming along, so to speak, if there's any along in any mind. I mean, all these so-called practices are nothing other than tricks. They're completely meaningless and irrelevant in themselves.
So one can use any sort of practice. So
Or non-practice. Why bother to call it practice? Just getting up in the morning. Due to getting up in the morning, reverting to the bathroom practice. And then they're getting some coffee, going to work, or being pissed off at your situation practice. And then coming home and having a beer and watching TV practice. I mean, just you want to call it a practice, whatever,
All right, I got that down.
Yeah.
Don't need to practice anymore.
Because what is happening is always happening and is not modified by any degree whatsoever by what you think you're doing or not doing. In other words, what is happening, what is actually happening here is always precisely the same way, and it's the same thing happening the same way. And so the point is to see what that is. And since it's always the same, it doesn't, regardless of what you think you're doing, it doesn't matter what you think you're doing. So do whatever it is that you do, or whatever you're drawn to do, or whatever, however you want to call that, and then just see what is happening here.
Well, for me, it used to be that I would write these philosophy papers, and I would think that I was making some sort of progress and working through this, deep emotional issues or whatever, and that my practice of writing the papers and reading these philosophy books and stuff was helping in that manner. Right? And now I'm not quite sure if it does anything. But it's not like writing a paper is any better or worse than screwing around on Facebook for several hours.
Of course not. When you're writing a paper, you're not really writing a paper. You're alive. You're doing it could be narrated or described as a billion different things at once that you're doing, and you're doing those things whether you're on Facebook or writing a paper or sound asleep at night.
But when you're screwing around on Facebook, you're screwing around on Facebook.
Right. Facebook's the one exception. Everything else is the same except for Facebook. Don't do it.
But sitting here and talking to you about spirituality is certainly different and more productive than screwing around on Facebook.
I don't know, is it? Why is that?
It seems a lot more satisfying.
You don't find cute pet videos satisfying? You don't find hearing Donald Trump's latest gaffe satisfying?
It's just like it's this empty hole that I keep on filling. That's what it feels like when I'm stuck in Facebook yet again.
Is it not, is it right here, is it not an empty hole that you're filling?
No,
Is the hole getting any fuller?
someday if I'm around you long enough, I'm gonna have a big realization.
And that big realization will be that there's an empty hole that you keep trying to filling.
And you may have a realization in the middle of a Facebook plunge.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Don't make the mistake of thinking that realization is of something. Realization is of that there is nothing for it to be of. The fantasy is that there is something to realize, there's something to realization is to be realizing of something. But true realization is the discovery, the absolute certain and self-verifying, undeniable discovery that there is nothing to realize other than this that is.
And so there's a sort of like assumption behind my sort of way of thinking that there's something lacking about.
Yeah, it's all based on a fantasies of resolution. And realization consists of the naked discovery that there is no such thing. Nothing like that actually exists. There is no condition that is resolvable, that can be resolvable.
But I don't want to just take that at face value.
There's no value or not value, just see it. See what this is and you will see that that's the case. Can you pin down what anything is whatsoever?
No.
Well, look, don't just say it, look and see. Is that true or not? Is there anything whatsoever that you can know certainly what it is? Or how it is, or anything whatsoever? Keep looking until you can answer that question for yourself. And don't take my word for it that there isn't. Look and see for yourself. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is something. Prove me wrong.
Can I say there's this sort of intellection going on?
You can't. But you say it's intellection. But what can you pin down exactly what this intellection is to verify that it is intellection? Is that not just an empty name for something that seems to be happening, and when you look for it, you can't actually find it?
Well, I don't know. It seems like there keeps on being there's the sort of wandering around looking for something.
Yeah, but what is wandering around looking for something really made of? What's it consist of?
But isn't that what you call intelligence? No.
Sure, everything's intelligence. But can you find intelligence?
You can find it in everything that's going on.
Okay.
The whole that's.
Okay, but can you find everything that's going on?
But then you have to say, well, it's this, right?
Huh?
You have to say, well, it's this.
Well, okay, and then what?
And then you give up searching.
Do you give up searching?
No.
Well then don't bullshit me. Or worse, better yet, don't bullshit yourself.
Bingo.
If you think there's searching, then you think there's something to search for. Look and see if there could be any such thing. Have you ever found anything whatsoever?
No, I want to hope for something.
You do. Hoping for something is the very essence of pain. It's the very essence of insanity. That's the truth.
I suggest you buy a lottery ticket.
You suggest what?
You buy the lottery ticket.
ways.
Yeah, buy lots of lottery tickets.
No, I just wait for one thing at a time.
Yeah, I don't win anything by not buying, right?
You can't win by.
So I won't find anything by stopping looking for it.
There's not, but since if there's nothing to find, you won't not find it by
You've
stopping
already
looking
found
for it
it.
because there's nothing to not find. There's nothing to find or not find. You won't lose anything if you stop looking, and you won't gain anything if you continue looking. That's what hopelessness consists of. You can't. There's nothing that can be possibly be gained, and nothing that can possibly be lost. All there ever has been is this. All there ever will be is this, eternally, literally eternally.
And literally and eternally, how's that?
Eternally means without time. Time doesn't exist. Only this exists, and this is always, seems to be always here now, but you can't actually find it here, and you can't actually find it now because they're figments, they're fantasies. There's certainly no past and future, but there's not even a present. So there's no time. There's just this presence. And it has never not been, and it never will not be.
And then hope breeds eternal. That's not true. Because it is
Insanity breeds eternal. I think it springs eternal, but
Oh, okay, it springs. I don't know, it depends on where your mind is when you think about it. So after people have this realization of hopelessness and nothingness, they keep on coming back to your gatherings so they can get more nothing.
after they have the realization there's no gathering and no them and no coming and going, so whatever it looks like, it looks like. And it doesn't make any more sense than it ever did, and it's not any more predictable than it ever was. So. You could say what this is could be modeled as being a continuous spectrum, okay? And you could say that one extreme of the spectrum would be absolute, let's call it absolute objectivity, and another extreme would be absolute subjectivity. But these extremes are only ideals because they never actually occur. You never get to any extreme. And this continuous spectrum presents itself as being completely different from any different perspective that experience takes on it. And there's an infinite variety of possible takes on it. And all these takes can be accessed simultaneously, although perhaps you could say that it tends to be done, with predominant, various points being more predominantly front and center on a dynamic basis. But none of it is anything. It just looks, it can look as if it was a certain way from a certain perspective. And if you look at it from a different perspective, it looks completely a different way. So you can look at this as being, a meeting in a house in Berkeley. You can look at it as being absolutely nothing, or you can look at it as being you, or you can look at it as being, a field of infinite consciousness, or you can look at it as this, that, and the other. And all of those modes of apparition are viable and attainable, but none of them are true.
Or all of them are true.
Well, yeah, but none of them are true as such. None of them are true as exactly what it seems to be. None of them are true as independent actualities. In other words, this can look like anything, but it is not what it looks like. It's never what it looks like. But its nature is that it can and does look like however it happens to look. But never do any of its appearances settle into stability or coherence or resolvability.
Is it like there's a thing itself which is absolutely irresolvable, and then there's this this overlay on that?
No, you can say that, but there's no and then.
Yeah.
It can look as if that's the case, but that's not actually the case. It is its own overlay, and even that is not actually that. It just seems to be that. There's endless seemings, but the seemings aren't actually anything because they don't resolve to actually being what they seem to be. In other words, none of the perspectives stand up to scrutiny within their own range of implication.
So Peter, you seem to be a fairly intellectual guy who knows a lot of information about a lot of different things, but that's just the product of your nature and your preferences. That there's nothing especially meaningful about that stuff, or just it's especially meaningful to you because of your nature, or like that stuff.
You could say that, but none of that's actually that way. It all resolves to mystery. It looks as if it might be describable in those terms, but that description is completely inaccurate. And there's no more accurate description.
So are we just always joking around by positing this or that, or
What's joking around mean? Joking around compared to what?
like we know that at some level we know that it's just a bunch of BS to say something that's one way or
Yes,
another.
of course. That's why the urgency and the fearfulness and the neurotic neediness to try to resolve, because all of that is occurring against the dreaded intuitional certainty that nothing like that is possible.
And yet it's not just dread; it's self amusement too.
All apparent motivations are the same. They're just aspects of the one motivation, which is a mystery. But all this trying to describe it and trying to figure it out is completely irrelevant.
Well, it's irrelevant until you sort of just realize that it's all seen. I mean, or it's,
And then it's just as irrelevant.
yeah, right. I mean,
It may seem relevant, but that's delusion. You know, the fantasy of resolvability is the problem, if there is a problem. It's not really a problem, but it sets up, it's the basis for all error and frustration.
yeah,
All hoping and all failing are based upon that basic principle, which is a mistake because nothing like that actually exists. Since there is no resolvability, then the hope of achieving something, the hope of achieving a goal, the hope of achieving an understanding, the hope of achieving a position, the hope of achieving some clarity or some identification is meaningless, and which turns out to be a big load off.
yeah. I mean, I can sort of see. Well, I suppose just sort of in my own way. I mean, just wanting something to be something
Sure,
the way I want it.
sure.
You know, I mean, I'm talking on a really, it's almost like a psychological, level. But so it's sort of liberating. To just sort of take that, just sort of almost to a primal level, and then everything just sort of flows, and there is
Exactly.
There's no. I don't know. It's sort of wondrous just watching all the stuff.
There doesn't need
that comes
to.
through.
There doesn't need to not be wanting, because
Right.
wanting isn't really wanting.
Right.
Because you can't resolve that. If wanting was wanting, that would be based upon the notion that you could resolve that was the case. But wanting is not. Wanting is a mystery. You can't know that wanting actually is wanting. Wanting is infinite weirdness, and everything is infinite weirdness. And in the face of that, it's no longer wanting. It's no longer frustration. It's no longer. It's just endless weirdness.
Yeah. So I was sort of talking about like the neurotic type of.
The same, but that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
then
But even that, you can't find neurotic. Neurotic.
No, but I mean,
Doesn't exist because
but the more neurotic you get, the more wants you have, the more it's easy to liberate yourself, from sort of having to resolve it to be one thing.
Yeah. When you see there's no resolution, that solves everything without changing anything. It creates sanity. It doesn't create no more wanting. It doesn't create no more striving.
No.
It just frees you from wanting and striving, because you discover that what that actually is never was wanting or never was striving, and it isn't you anyway.
Yeah.
So the entire bubble is burst without any of the phenomena needing to be any different than they ever were, because they never were what you thought they were, and they didn't conform to what you were calling.
Yeah, I guess another way that it's happened to me at times is it's interesting that you say a bubble. I mean, the bubble gets burst, and it just sort of dissolves and there's more bubbles.
Sure.
Then,
Yeah, and nothing changes. But it doesn't need to change because there's nothing to change.
I know, that's what's so strange.
It's very strange.
It's not like it's not like these wants are quote unquote meaningless. I mean, they have particularly meaning sometimes, and other times not. But I guess it's just the fact that there's so many of them and they just keep on coming and coming and going. You can just, I can just sort of look at it and say, oh, well, that's
Sure. And because meaning isn't really meaning. What we call meaning can't be resolved as actually being that. So again, that's another bubble burst, and it's just more infinite mystery.
Well, I sort of take it, you've often said that, the intelligence just wants to know itself. It's just constantly searching.
Sure.
So in a sense, I guess that's what I'm doing, in this
Sure.
life.
Sure.
Irresolvability wants to know that it's irresolvable.
Sure. You can call it that, but it's not resolvable as actually being there.
Yeah, no, I meant that it's, if it's present to present, moment to moment, not even moment to moment, because we're not even, it's timeless.
Yeah.
But in the way I experience this, there's just so many. There's so much phenomena. There's so much. It's so interesting.
Yeah, of course. It's infinite.
And and I'm just sort of seeing a small portion of of this intelligence. But that's enough to just of course you want to sort of see what it is, but then something else comes and you have to sort of see what that is.
Well, you don't have the option of not seeing what it is, or
Right.
not wanting to see what it is.
Right.
You can't stop or turn off or turn away from the moment.
No.
The moment is being completely engaged with absolute interest,
Right.
with absolute fascination. Whatever that is being interpreted as being or looks like in the moment, it still is always exactly that.
I guess that's sort of how I find sort of see unresolvability. Is there's just so much.
Sure.
No, and it is interesting. It is engaging.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, unresolvability is another way of putting infinity, or vice versa. And infinity is the very essence of just so much.
Yeah.
So there is a sort of stickiness, one you could say, right? That it's like I was just thinking about like maybe a lot of the time I make these assumptions that a certain something can be resolved and like hold on to some hope around that. But for you and your experience, it's always like you're surfing, right? So not for one fraction of a moment are you holding on to anything.
Never, because holding on is not holding on. There's no such thing as holding on. So there may or may not be some fantasy or pretense of holding on, but it's not actually that, so it's never that. Stickiness is not actually that, so it's never that. You can't stop moving with call it the flow of events, which are instantaneous and infinite and non-repeating. So you are continually being stripped away from everything that ever was the case into absolute newness, and then stripped away from that, and so on forever. So where could stickiness reside? What could holding on to actually consist of? Mind you, it can seem as you can call it stickiness and call it holding on, but that's just a fantasy. That's a naming of something, a designation of something as being that which is not like that even a little bit. And explicitly, it's completely blatantly obvious that it's not like that. Just look at the dynamism of experience and the absolute instantaneous and non-repeating fact of change. Every experience is already gone and will never come again. And it's replaced by newness continuously without any repetition. So how could there be stuckness? How could there be stickiness? How could there be holding? There can only be the fantasy of holding, which is a pretense to claim to be holding when nothing like that can be found. Like, I'm holding on to this moment, I'm holding on to this experience. It's like, yeah, that's just a mantra, that's just bullshit, that's just a stream of lies. Because the actual explicit fact is not that. The actual explicit fact is endless cascading into newness. And it's never not that. It's never not completely and entirely and utterly that.
So even in a situation of like trauma or
Anything, what difference does it make? You can pretend to be stuck and pretend to have recreation, but all of that is a fantasy that is not actually that. You're just calling it, it's a label, you're calling it that. But the experience is never that because it isn't, it can't be.
Even the experience of the labeling changes.
Of course,
If
everything
you pay
changes.
close attention. Always spinning something in order to, feeding itself back into something new. But that's just an appearance too.
The actuality of experience does not correspond to its labeling, does not correspond to the way it's being designated conceptually. The picture does not correspond to the caption. So you can say, this is my stuckness, and that's the caption, but the picture is not that, because there is no such thing. The picture is always never-ending newness, never-ending unresolvability, never-ending mystery and infinity. I mean, not in some vague abstract sense, but literally, concretely, right here, right now, always, and obviously so. Just look and see, open your eye. You've never experienced everything you're experiencing right now, you've never experienced before, and it's already gone. And now it looks like this, 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 and it's all completely new, and it's all completely gone forever. And that's always the case. I mean, it's not even subtle, it's really blatantly obvious.
how do I know if I'm experiencing anything if I don't compare compare it to.
How do you know if you experience anything? If you
No, I mean, like, it seems like that's a sort of logical line. Like,
What's a logical line?
that I have a sort of recognition of what I think this is based on, oh, it looks similar to what I imagine.
Yeah, but all of that is fabricated and spin doctored into existence by the concepts that you're employing, not by the actuality.
And the actuality is just
It's always newness, mystery.
You can't compare to anything.
Okay, your experience of that plate right now, you've never had before and you'll never have again, and it's already gone. So how can you compare that to anything? You would have to go back to it to compare it to something. The only thing, no, but here's the plate, it's still sitting there. No, it's a new experience of it. You're seeing it from a slightly different angle, the light's different, you're noticing different things of it, your eyes are settling on different portions of it. New. The old one is gone, you can't compare it. You can argue logically, yeah, but it's relatively similar to what I recall of previous experiences of what I'm calling that plate. And you can do that, that's fine, but that's a logical argument. And again, if you look at the experiential basis of that logical argument, it still it defeats itself, because every instant is completely unique. So similar is a euphemism for completely different.
Mhm.
And that plate is more similar, that cup is more similar to that cup than that cup is to the rug on the floor, right? Okay, you can say that, but that doesn't stand up, because that cup is absolutely unique right now. That cup is absolutely unique right now. The carpet is absolutely unique right now. So they're all completely different. So you can assert the logic, but it doesn't actually apply to the experiential actuality. The point is not to attend to the logic, attend to the experience, and you will discover absolute uniqueness and absolute unresolvability and absolute mystery. And then your logic can play catch up later. Don't keep going back to your logic to try to correct it, or to try to correct experience by supposing it's supposed to conform to your logic. Just leave the logic in the dust and attend to the way experience works, and you will discover these things. It's not subtle, it's completely obvious. I can say, I've been in this room many, many times, and every time it's more or less similar. But that logical argument is a fallacy, because, in fact, the experience, what I'm calling this room, is an assertion that is baseless, because I've never had this experience before. I've been in this room when it was painted a different color and all the furniture was in a different place. Is it the same room? Well, it's kind of the same room, but the furniture moved around in different paint. It's like, you start apologizing and having all these logical corrections on top. The experience here has never happened before in any of its details. Experience is not made of generalities, it's made of specifics. You're experiencing specifically exactly what you're experiencing right now.
That's it.
There's no generalities. A room is a generality. This is an absolute specific. This is precisely the way it is, what it is, right here, right now. And it is not a generality, it is a specific. And you have to lapse into generalities to start finding similarities in things. And there are no generalities in existence, it's only specifics. And the specific that is in existence is the experiential field, call it. And what that is, by its very nature, is unresolvable and non-repeating and unique.
So it seems like it would be more useful for me to stare at the rug than write a philosophy paper.
When you write a philosophy paper, you're just staring at the piece of paper and your hand moving or whatever. Or a computer screen and your fingers moving, whatever you're staring at. What's the difference? Staring at the computer, staring at the rug. You're pretending you're writing a paper, but that's just you're labeling for the fact that there's light present in your field of vision. Attend to the light. Don't attend to what you're narrating that it's happening, that the light is shaped like.
Seems the problem is you continue to want to label things and put little tags and post-its on.
Sure.
I'm writing, that's a piece of paper, this is my pen, that's the rug, and how are they similar or not similar? Just the labeling, it seems to be your stumbling block. You're constantly going, it's a loop that you're caught up in. And you're calling it logic or you're calling it paper, doesn't make any difference. You're still putting a post-it on there. Quit. Just notice when you're labeling and then notice that that's just an experience you're having. And leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't try and resolve it. Don't try and get rid of it. You're having an experience and it's like labeling or it's a thought or it's an itch on your nose. It's not so complicated.
Well, it's sort of also like, trying to learn how to ride a bike. And if you just keep on saying, I'm trying to ride a bike. I mean, first place, when you're writing a philosophy paper, you're not just sitting there saying, I'm writing a philosophy paper, I'm writing a philosophy paper, I'm writing a philosophy paper. There's so much going on, you couldn't ever begin to describe it, right? I mean, just everything from the cells on the keyboard, but you're not breaking it down like that. You're not doing that.
Labeling is.
I mean, you're just doing it. I mean,
narrations, descriptions are generalities. Experience is made of specifics. There are no generalities in experience. That's a table is a generality. That there is a field of visual color and texture is specific. There's no table. That's just a generality, a label, and a fantasy. The presence of this field of experiential qualities in experience is not a table, it's not a generality, it's precisely what it is at the instant that it is precisely that way. You see that?
A little bit.
Oh no, you see it completely, just look at it. The presence is the specifics that are present as experience do not correspond to your descriptions of them because your descriptions cannot go to the level of detail that the specifics present as. Or the level of instantaneity and change, because every instant you experience it differently and not in a non-repeating basis. So you'd have to be coming up with infinitely detailed descriptions that were changing in the instant, continuously. And even that wouldn't go to the depth of encompassing or addressing all of the specifics that are present. And there are no discrete specifics. So even the calling them the specifics is a lie because there's no this specific and that specific and that specific. It's a field of specificity that does not consist of discrete elements.
And also that's not static.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes you talk about color, that's helpful to see. You say, like, your sweater's supposedly purple, but if you really study it, like, go ahead. You say it, but
Well, no, you're saying it right on. It's an infinity of colors.
Yeah.
What shade of color is this? Oh, it's a red sweater. It's how many shades of red are present in your experience? There's no way you can count them, and they're continually dynamically shifting in the instant as your eyes shift or the light shifts or I move my body or whatever. So that again, the generality of it being a red sweater presents as if it was a stable, persistent thing. But there is no such generality to be found, because the only thing that can be found is the specificity of the experiential field, which is absolutely dynamic and absolutely unresolvable as being precisely this way or that way.
And we can't verbalize what it is because
Right.
who can name all those colors?
No, it couldn't be done. And there's, both in quantity and in impermanence and in dynamism, it is infinite.
But we can see it
Yeah,
and feel
totally.
it, and it
Yeah.
has its own,
It is what it is
and it's
explicitly.
broadcasting that
Of course.
non-verbally.
It's completely presently what it is. The specifics are actual, are present, and are known. They just are not designatable. They are, which another way of saying resolvable. Descriptions are pretenses of resolving it. When I say this is a red sweater, I'm pretending to have taken this and resolved it to the notion of red sweater with some pretense that resolution has some accuracy. And it's absurd. It's a complete fallacy.
It seems like all of that's more obvious. Like if I look at the color of the kimchi stain.
Sure. Kimchi stains are good spiritual practice. It's called the kimchi stain practice. It's big in Korea, I understand.
And you also tell us to start with what's easy,
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
But as soon as you get your foot in the door, you discover everything's very easy and very obvious.
Well, colors are more obvious than something.
Well, perhaps,
Each person has a different thing that
That's
they.
right.
yeah, perhaps, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's true across the board. Whatever you look at within experience, you will discover precisely the same condition. A field of unresolvable infinite specificity that does not collapse down accurately to consisting of any generalities. With absolutely discontinuous in terms of it having any permanency or any duration. Every experiential condition is already something else in the instant. There's no period of time, no matter how short, where it is a certain way and then becomes some other way. It's as soon as it's any way, it's already another way. So it's never actually any way because it's already some other way.
I've got something on the edge here. Let me see if I can get it out. In a way, if you understand that, you can take the mentality, the thoughts and all that stuff and recognize that there's a sense in which it's always trying to play catch up just to come up with something accurate. And language is very lazy because it is general. It's never very specific. And so if you can see that, then it's easier to see it, to experience it as just a passing, fleeting thing that isn't saying anything about anything.
Sure.
Because it's so general and it's so always trying to catch up with itself that it shows itself to be lying to you all the time.
Sure.
Because it can never come up with the right definition or the right explanation or the right description.
Sure.
It shows itself to be a liar, in a sense, if you think of it that way. The fact that it's never going to tell you the truth.
You've spoken of things being a game or having game structures, but there's nothing to win over, or that's again taking the metaphor too strongly to.
Game structures are the pretenses of the way humans pretend to relate to their actuality and what's happening or what they're doing and why they're doing it and so on and so forth. And so it's literally a game, and they're made to, since it's a game, it's defined into existence by its own rules. And then you can define goals and success and failure into existence in the same way, because it's all just imagined into existence. Anyway, just like Monopoly. Monopoly has no existence. It's created by positing a set of rules, and then it becomes self-verifying just according with those rules. But there is no such thing as monopoly. So likewise with human interaction, a relationship or a career or anything, all of these things are basically game structures that are defined into existence, either vaguely and generally by society or individually by particular people's orientation of what they claim they're doing. But the whole thing is just like monopoly. It's defined into existence, and so it has no basis in fact.
That's what I was trying to say.
So
I'm a plagiarist, that's all. A rank
You
plagiarist.
put it so nicely.
so language itself is a game structure.
Yes, language is
Yes.
completely a game structure.
And
He's a plagiarist too.
But you can see that clearly. The fact that you have to keep describing something means you've yet to come up with the right description of it. So why would you put any weight on any of it? You'd say, oh, fuck that. I can't say it right anyway. I mean, clearly, except case in point. So it's like, it's noise.
He wouldn't come if you just said, fuck that.
That's true, he wouldn't go. That's okay too, he'd be doing something else.
He'd be on Facebook.
Yeah, he'd be enjoying himself on Facebook,
Fuck that.
right? Hey, let's go bowling.
there is a better and worse
Okay, let's go
in terms
bowling.
of description.
No,
She was implying that.
that in itself is just another game structure.
What did he say?
That there is more accurate descriptions and less accurate
No,
descriptions.
there's
It's
no
just another
implication of
game.
that.
All description is completely inaccurate. So all description is completely bad.
Exactly.
Not bad in any moral or ethical or sense. Not bad in any qualitative sense at all. Just inaccurate, irrelevant. Description has nothing to do with actuality, except that description actually exists. But the actual description of description isn't actually a description. That description is described into existence, and that's a game structure.
This is like Alice in Wonderland.
Would you like some more tea?
This clock is broken.
Peter, when you talk about the field of experience, it seems to me that's, well, for me that seems, that you almost seem, the idea of a field seems contained to me, because what I think is happening is just experiencing is, in a way, it's sort of like dreaming at night.
Sure.
And I'm experiencing them too, but I mean, essentially, I'm just making this all up all the time. It's the way I sort of,
Well,
I mean, that's the only
What
way
is
to make
present-
sense of what you're saying.
it depends what you mean by making it up. What is present is actually present.
Yes.
But what it is does not, any notion we have of what that is being made up.
Exactly. That's what I'm making
but
up.
this
I'm making
itself-
up, I'm making up.
But this itself is actually present and is not being made up in the same sense. Although it actually is, because the action or mechanism of interpreting it and the action and mechanism of its apparition is actually the same apparition. The intelligence or the vector, you could say, which is, of course, an empty assertion. That is, doing this is the same thing as doing the analyzing and the interpreting.
Yeah, I guess that's what, I think that's what, I was sort of saying. The interpreting is ongoing constantly.
Yeah, of course.
And the only reason why I can sort of get what you're saying, let's say, about trying to describe that table, is that idea that interpreting is changing all the time too.
Of course. Why don't we have a little 10-minute break? So video people will be back in about 10 minutes.
We're getting on the ceiling there, go like this. There we go. There's anything to see. All right, let's take a look at that beautiful fog. Is there fog now?
Yeah, even like the trees are sort of getting a little misty.
Joints. Circulating here hurts.
There's cookies. They are? Hey, are these gluten-free cookies?
Probably not. They didn't say what
You never eat those cookies anyhow.
Those ginger cookies are really good with chai.
I did.
I'm gonna make some.
They're tasty.
I had a little tiny nibble of one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather cheat on things that are much better, like cake, right?
Yeah.
Ginger cookie.
Hey, you only need one.
No, yeah, but they're the same. Cheat on the cheese.
It's the nicotine patch of desserts.
Is it? No. I want me a nice Cuban cigar, thank you very much. I'm gonna have me some nicotine, I want it for real.
Actually, next time I'm gonna get these like real deep dark chocolate cupcakes. It's basically a cake.
Yes,
All in
yes.
your
Now,
palm.
see, that I would be willing to cheat for, even there.
I know what you're talking about. I've seen
Yeah.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, okay, stop talking about it.
They're really good.
Yes, I'm sure. Stop already. Torturing me.
Deep, rich chocolate. Smooth.
You're mean.
I think I have a business idea here. I
Yeah,
think I have a business idea.
and what would that be?
Cake, pocket cake.
Pocket cake. Oh,
You can just carry it around with you. It stays fresh.
Put any powder or anything in it?
I think they call those chocolate bars.
Been
done.
No, but it would be a real cake, real moist.
Moist.
It's a good idea. Pocket cake.
That's what I used to do before. I just used to carry food around in my pockets,
Really?
which would sometimes got really messy.
I bet.
Squishy.
Were you, is this when you were a kid?
No.
I see, so
No,
it's
no.
something you've never outgrown.
This is when I was doing a lot of acting,
Oh, okay.
and you're on set, and
Oh, so you have to have a
Stand.
snack. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
have a snack.
you can't like leave that spot. Like,
No.
test the light, so I had a little something in my pocket.
That's a great idea.
Director would turn around.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's a good idea. Peppermint essential oil in here. Oh, well. Chicken. You wouldn't happen to have a peppermint essential oil on you, would you?
No.
That's okay. I didn't think you would. No.
Pam,
Yeah.
do you have peppermint essential oil? Do I have that peppermint essential oil?
No, what's that?
Of course not.
Oh.
I told you.
Who is the guy that knows everything about everything in the top?
I have some, pot, it's CBD and red egg purple, I mean, it's indica.
But in,
I can give, I have it in,
smoking form or in a tincture?
I'll give it in, oh, no, vaporizer, I mean, my vape,
No, it's okay.
one vape, oh,
No,
okay,
thank you.
all right.
Still waiting for another few weeks. I have to keep abstaining for a while.
I don't think it'd be inexpensive in a way to turn out, but it doesn't have. You know what that is? Okay, I really look.
Then you go to the rest.
Yeah. Oh, there's a bunch more reasons. This. You could go.
Yes, so,
Everybody's lost a little weight, I think.
I would like to have some tincture as, you know,
In
more.
that case, it's a very slimming outfit.
2-day migraine.
Or I tried to figure it Really does.
Maybe enough logic, maybe the less you try, the
Have you
start
tried
losing
it?
weight.
I tried that too.
Well, yes, I mean, it's like, he knows.
My migraine stopped and I stopped eating cayenne.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe something different for
Yeah,
him.
well,
Caffeine maybe.
he's eating too much meat, he's not doing any caffeine anymore, but,
Me.
well, he was drinking, but that was.
I'm thinking of doing it.
No, I mean, because, you know, he practices Chinese medicine.
You'll definitely lose weight with that.
So it's peppermint oil tincture.
Peppermint oil tincture, I rub it on all the pressure points that tend to.
How about
get
any, have you gotten?
I've lost about, since I started doing that, I lost about 20 pounds.
And it's aspical, any, you know,
I stopped using it for a while to see if my stigmata goes away and my psoriasis.
what,
And- Yeah, because I had a feeling that I'm allergic to it.
Oh.
Which is horrible. It depressed me when I thought about that. But, it has been getting better. It is kind of depressing. But in another month or so, I'll start
But anyway, so
trying
the
again.
well, I guess I could, should go, I could.
I'm gonna be up there on Friday, so I could stop
Would
by,
you get me some,
get
something, ask them,
something for migraines.
for Morgan?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
something, I mean, well, I was thinking, I'd like to not have them smoke pot, maybe smoke away.
you have tincture or something?
Yeah, I've heard about tincture, yeah.
Yeah, tincture or something.
In fact, there was that woman, well, you weren't there, at, Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
I think, something about Fairfax, but if you go, just ask them if they
If
have.
they have any tincture that would be helpful to someone.
Yeah, I would rather have
With
not eat it,
migraines.
yeah, have not eat it or.
Not eat it or smoke it, but
Is that
be
your
a
mom
tincture
that
under the tongue.
Huh?
Yeah, tincture in the
Is that your mom that
tongue, or
called?
even.
No, it was just an alarm.
Okay.
Yeah, just check.
Instead of alcohol. Oil-based.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I know. Remember when we were doing and the waitress said, we were talking about tinctures and, you know, marijuana based CBD for like a headache or something. Remember what she said?
You mean like where she got that?
Yeah, was it
Well,
in Paris?
I know, there's a place in Lake that sells CBD tinctures.
But are they hemp or hemp or what?
Yeah, that's great.
I think they're hemp, so they're just CBD.
Yeah, yeah, he might be able to
And
work with that.
my computer guy, had a pretty serious cancer a couple of He went to these guys at
Woodacre.
letting use their tinctures and their
Woodacre, you know, on the way to Ray's house.
Hmm?
Woodacre.
Yeah, I know
Woodacre.
Woodacre.
Yeah,
If you wanna email me, or you got, do you still have the bottle?
oh, the empty bottle you showed me. Yeah, I have that there. Okay, we're back.
She has the bottle.
Okay. Okay,
Why don't you text
I'll
me?
take a picture of it. Yes. Text it to you.
Oh, it's Beth.
Hey, all right, yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Now what you might bring.
Oh, yeah.
What they bring? Did they bring chocolate? If they didn't bring chocolate, forget it. Oh, we're back. Doesn't matter.
Ring the, what was the bell?
There.
You rang it already.
There already one. I definitely don't.
So, Peter, there's no ground, right? And yet there's a sense of grounding or being grounded or ungrounded.
All of which are the nature of the ground, which is no ground. Ungrounded is the way in which is one of the ways in which grounding and the ungrounded ground can live. And grounded is one of the ways in which being grounded in the ungrounded ground can live.
Ungrounding can be a feeling of out of bodiness or very sort of spaciousness up here-ness.
The true grounding is grounding in the infinite field. The body appears within that, and stable, like material circumstances appear within that, but that itself is not like any of those. But it is exactly what it is, and that is what this actually is. In other words, solidity floats within the bubble of your being, and the bubble of your being does not sit on anything. And that is what the true grounding is. Can you see that?
No, not really.
Well, look right now. Don't think about it, just look at it. Here's your experience appearing, right? So here's the experience of your sense fields appearing. What's that in? And you don't have to come up with something solid or concrete or specific, but what's that in? Look at what that's in. And that's the bubble of your being.
But that's not in anything, is it?
Huh?
That's not in anything.
Well, right, it's not a thing, but it's not nothing. In any simple sense.
It's just a sort of energetic presence.
Sure, call it that if you wish, that's fine.
Sort of.
You don't need to designate it or name it, that's not the point. The point is to experientially look at it. The most solid aspects of your experience, your sensory experience, appears in something, appears in the field of your experience, which is, let's say, more tenuous or more subtle than the solid aspects which seem to be appearing, right? Look at the way in which that's so. This is not abstraction, this is referring to concrete presence of your experience right here, right now.
Yeah, I guess like there seems to be more of a solidity about this than the energetic presence of.
Sure. The solidity appears within that, but the solidity is based on that, not the other way around. Your body appears within the bubble of your experience, and the apparition of the body is based on the bubble of your experience, not the other way around. Look at the way in which that's so.
That's all there's, that's all there is.
That's all there is. This is all there is, which is that. Yeah, exactly so. The bubble of your experience is the totality of reality. And it is very subtle and transcendental in its nature, and yet everything that appears that seems to be less subtle and seems to be more concrete just appears within that as an aspect of its subtlety. And all of this more concreteness is based on nothing other than that subtle actuality, not the other way around. Just like the dream, when you dream at night, the dream appears within your sleeping. And the sleep is a less tenuous, or a less, well, more tenuous, whatever, more subtle sort of a experientially presence that the relatively concrete apparition of the dream seems to appear within. But the concreteness of the dream is not actual concreteness. You can have, concrete buildings in a dream that fall on you and crush you, but then you wake up and you know there was no concrete there and there was nothing being crushed because there's no gravity. It just looked that way, felt that way. So all of that concreteness was based on actuality that was actual, concrete in that sense, but not solid in a simplistic, materialistic, heavy sense. Look at the way in which that's so. In the way in which that's so right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Your experience of your body, the vision of it, the feel, the touch of it, the smell of it, all of that appears within the field of your consciousness, if you wish. Your consciousness is not a byproduct of your body. The apparition of the body is a byproduct appearing within your consciousness, just like a dream is a byproduct of your sleeping.
And then what does your consciousness exist in?
It is in itself, it's transcendental. It is the absolute. It's not resting on anything. It's not a product of something else. It is the primal miracle. And everything that's seemingly not miraculous, seemingly concrete, is just embedded in an extrusion of this miracle. That is the basis of everything. A miraculous being, which is you, which is your nature.
Okay, so how about like less subtle experience than the seeming solidity of the plate, right? So so there's like a feeling, right? A feeling, a sense presence of ungroundedness or anxiety or something like that, right? And a feeling of disconnection from the seeming solidity of the body, right? So that also draws its beingness from the experiential bubble or?
Of course, all experiential qualities do. And experiential qualities are present concurrently, not necessarily coherently. So there can be very divergent, very contrary or conflicting experiential qualities present concurrently.
That's so bizarre. So that's the question. Well, it's kind of what I was just gonna ask you, because it's like I'm experiencing like a kind of a warp, kind of mood, if I put a sound effect to it, where it's kind of like like the experience partially dissolves, but it's not really dissolving because it's not really there to begin with. But does that, so it really doesn't mean anything. Like I feel like I'm acclimating to that being just what it is.
Yeah, and that's the point. That the point is, it is what it is, and that can look like anything. It can look any which way.
Whether it's partial or.
But what it is not dependent upon what it looks like. But it's the other way around. What it looks like is dependent on what it is, but there's no correlation. There's no one-to-one correlation there.
It's as if it's teaching me that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's inherent.
It's teaching you the breadth of its range and the breadth of its dimensionality. Yeah, it is. It's very cool.
It feels a lot easier to experience this in a dream.
It seems like it, but that's because you can look at a dream from outside. The waking condition is harder to look at from outside because usually when you're outside the waking condition, you're asleep. So you don't have the ability to look at anything. Because in sleep, the analytical facilities are numbed or less present. And then if you're in a dream, you could look at your waking state, except that when you're in a dream, you forget that the waking state even exists. And you think that the dream state is the waking state, or is the current corollary of the waking state. But the waking state is relatively unique because from the waking state, you can remember the dream state. But it's very rare, if possible at all, to have the other way around, to remember the waking state from the dream state.
I have had that happen.
Sure, anything's possible.
But what you're saying is that there's more of a looseness, seemingly.
Perhaps, yeah, relatively, and yet actually they're exactly the same thing. The dream state and the waking state are precisely the same actuality, and they work in the same way. Even if, generally speaking, the dream state could be said to be looser or whatever, and the waking state can seem to have a higher degree of pseudo-coherence. But all of that is not actually so. It's just another seeming.
So the meaningfulness of that experience is just in the experience itself.
Yes, always. Just this right here, right now, is always the totality of meaningfulness. But don't fall into the fallacy of thinking there's any relevance to what it seems to be in any particular moment. It can look like anything. But it's always exactly the same.
Isn't lucid dreaming sort of supposed to help? I mean, I have been trying to do some lucid dreaming. I have, everyone does naturally sometimes. But isn't that supposed to sort of carry over to your waking, quote unquote, your waking experience and try to experience things more loosely in the waking?
Sure, that can happen.
I mean, it helps you in noticing.
Any kind of insight or any kind of revelation that can happen in the dream state applies and is relevant and may resonate with similar revelation or insight in the waking state.
Yeah.
I mean, going lucid in a dream state is basically an echo of realization in the waking state. They're one and the same thing. Going lucid in the dream state is an echo of realization in the waking state. They're one and the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Realization in the waking state is basically lucid waking. Just like lucid dreaming in the dream state is lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
When you're lucid dreaming, the difference between lucid dreaming and just an ordinary dull dreaming is you realize that it's just a dream and what seems to be happening isn't actually happening in the way that it seems to be when you're just sucked into it as being an objective reality. And exactly the same thing happens with the waking condition. In realization, in the waking state, you see that the waking state does not objectively exist. The waking state is as an energetic presence of you. It's occurring within you and is a manifestation or projection of you. And so instead of the fantasy that you're in it, you're little and it's
Yeah.
big and you're in
No,
it,
it's all in.
you see that you're big and it's little and it's in you,
Yeah.
which is basically exactly what a lucid dream is like. You know, to put it in those terms, not that that's necessarily accurate.
In a way, it is sort of a sense, I think that's what I was trying to say about experiencing the table and the way you were trying to describe it, is that it's my experience, and that experience is so much bigger than a tiny little idea of saying that's a table.
Yeah, of course. Exactly so. Yeah. You are vast. You are inconceivably vast. You are infinite. You are that concretely. That's the fact.
Right.
And you can know that. And if you know that, you will. That's what self-realization is. You realize the being of yourself. You realize the being of what you are, which is as the totality of reality. And of course, all specifics or subsets of reality appear within you, because if you're the totality, then obviously everything else is an aspect of that.
Yeah, when I say it's in me, I mean, not like a small little me.
No, of course,
body
but,
or
yeah.
anything, but I mean, something.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
very crazy.
Yeah.
Is there any value in pursuing lucid dreaming?
No. I mean,
Mhm.
there's value in intelligently engaging with reality. So if you pursue lucid dreaming intelligently, there's value. If you pursue it stupidly, there's less value. Although stupidity is a subtle version of intelligence, so it's very paradoxical.
I'm okay then.
Thank God. Thank goodness.
You're kind of putting, when you call it lucid dreaming and say, oh, I'm doing lucid dreaming practice, it's not really what's happening.
No, of course not. Lucid dreaming isn't really lucid dreaming.
What are the marks of intelligent engagement?
Revelation.
So if it works, it's intelligent.
Yes.
If it doesn't work, it's just you don't understand.
And if it doesn't work, it's still working. You're just not recognizing it.
I mean, if you're fairly intelligent, you don't have to make a big deal out about lucid dreaming. Once you know that,
Yeah.
It's happening, it's happened.
It's not the lucid dreaming that matters. It's the intelligent engagement
Right,
that matters.
exactly.
It's not the spiritual practice that matters. It's the intelligent engagement that matters. It's not the lack of spiritual practice that matters. It's the intelligent engagement that matters. That's always the only thing that matters is intelligent engagement, and the seeming form in which, as a context in which that may seem to occur, is irrelevant completely.
I think lucid dreaming does have value in as much as, just as you said before, it tells you, it gives you an insight into the ephemeral nature of reality, because you see reality from a different perspective.
Well,
And
yeah, it's revelation.
It's revelation, that's exactly right. And that allows you to become aware of, or they go hand in hand, but you also, by seeing that different reality, you see it when you're awake too.
Yeah, but revelation is revelation of reality. There's nothing
Yes.
else to be revealed, of course. So and successful intelligent engagement is revelation, and revelation is realization, and or is the process towards realization, if you wish. Although it is actually realization in itself. although it may or may not seem to be final or stable or complete.
I think the revelation explains sort of the fun of it. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean like entertaining fun, but I mean more fresh or, I don't know, it's
Unpredictability.
it's the height of
it's just,
of satisfaction and
Yeah.
deliciousness and nourishment.
Yeah.
Revelation.
and the same way
revelation.
noticing,
Yeah.
or in
Well,
the
except,
so-called
but
waking life.
yeah, but noticing is again is if it's done right is revelation. Revelation is the only thing that matters. And actually, there's nothing but revelation. Every moment is revelation, and recognizing that, you get to partake of revelation.
Right.
And realization is recognizing that there's nothing but revelation.
Everything is awesome.
Pretty far out, man. That's like far out shit.
Is it important the degree of subtlety of energy presence that one engages with? Or
No, it's unimportant. But the nature of revelation again shows you that there is no degrees of subtlety. Everything is infinitely subtle. What seems to be coarse is actually a version of infinite subtlety. And what seems to be subtle is a version of infinite subtlety. So when you're a little dull, there seems to be a difference. There seems to be only what's coarse. When you get a little bit of revelation, you discover subtlety, and when you get a more profound revelation, you discover that coarseness is subtlety, and there's nothing but. Not that that's literally true, but that's
It is literally true.
well, it's relevant. it has meaningfulness.
So it's not important that you have a particular capacity for an apparent mode, resonant mode.
No.
It's that you recognize it for what it is.
Yes, because you'll have different capacities all across the board, more or less capacity in different experiential, call it bandwidths, or different experiential flavors, depending upon just sort of the nature of the way your energy tends to sit. You can call it your karma if you want. But that is unimportant in itself. What's important is to see it for what it is, which again may or may not be more powerful to do in certain bandwidths of experience than others for any given individual.
Okay.
So the trick is to do it where it's easy, and what you learn there will apply across the board.
Yeah,
In other words, use your talent, and what you achieve by using your talent will apply across the board, even in areas where you have lesser talent.
it will just naturally spread to your
Good.
whole experience.
Because it is that way, and you'll see the way in which it's that way. So it's not like it's a serial thing where you need to do it here, and then you need to do it here, and then you need to do it here, and after you've done it everywhere, all the different places, then you get it. It's not like that. When you see what is to be seen anywhere, you see that is true everywhere, without needing to stack them all up in series or in sequence.
So wherever you get the most kick.
Yes. Yeah.
So talent is the same as predilection?
Sure, you could say that.
What's my talent?
I don't know.
Perseverance.
Stubbornness?
Stubbornness, that's what I was gonna say.
Obtuseness?
Taking notes.
Goats do their
It's not important to designate these things or to try to
Yeah, you
to
live.
quantize them or pin them down, because of course the very nature of that can't be done. And so seeing that can't be done is revelation. In other words, you don't need to worry about your blind spots and your areas of greater ability, just use them. And as you use them, they will become irrelevant.
Yeah.
Or not irrelevant, but just unimportant. You don't need to make yourself into a super being. You just need to see that you are a super being, and you never were not that. Even all of your imperfections are actually manifestations of your absolute, complete, transcendental perfection, without needing to not be whatever they seem to be, without needing to change or be fixed.
So I guess I'm not neurotic.
Well, no, you're neurotic, but
that's perfect.
that's your transcendental perfection.
But you're perfectly neurotic. Perfectly neurotic. Wondrously, miraculously neurotic.
Yeah, neurosis is a manifestation of divine perfection.
And same thing with physical incapacity.
Of course, everything. There's nothing else.
Some teachers talk about staying with the quality of I am, that's in all and everything. And I was wondering, they say almost like it precedes particularity. I was wondering if that is essentially the same as something you say.
Well, you don't need to stay with it because you can't get rid of it. I mean, I am is a euphemism for being. So you don't need to stay with being. Try and get rid of your being. Try and make it go away. Try and make it less. Try and turn it down or dim it or something. It can't happen.
This applies to everything in experience.
But you can see, of course it does. That is the context within which everything appears. So you don't need to stay with it or not stay with it. That's an absurdity. But noticing it can be very fruitful revelation. Notice the way in which that's the case. Notice the way in which your being is the ground within which everything happens, whatever it is, and whatever happens or doesn't happen doesn't add to or subtract from the being.
Say it again.
Your I amness doesn't become more or less I amness if you succeed or fail, if you have pleasure or pain, if you have life or death. The beingness is not affected, is not vulnerable. It's transcendental. It's not improved or damaged by anything that seems to happen.
Unconditional.
Unconditional. I mean, absolutely. I mean, literally, absolutely. And seeing the way in which that's the case, of course, is profound revelation.
I've been experimenting with really just trying to let go of trying to make anything happen. It seems like my focus just gets continually more intra-obsessed, and and then my sensitivity is getting more dull too.
I'm not sure what intra-possessed means.
Like it's just getting more like focusing less out in the world and more like introverted, neurotic, fixating, and which perhaps is fine.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what seems to be happening, or it doesn't matter where your focus goes. The point is always to see what it actually is. It's actually, whatever happens is actually a mysterious presence of experiential characteristics that are unresolvable, appearing miraculously. And it doesn't matter what it is, that's always the case. You can be focused on the outside world very functionally and very non-neurotically, or you can be focused on your internal world and sucked into a whirlpool of personal hell. And it's still exactly the same. It's still just a miraculous energy presence, the miraculous presence of apparent experiential characteristics within your consciousness. And that's the important point. That's because that's what's true. What it seems to look like is irrelevant, because whatever it seems to look like is inaccurate anyway. because what it actually is unresolvable. And the way it seems to be is not what you think it is, or it's not the way you describe it. So subjective isn't really subjective. Interior isn't really interior. Exterior isn't really exterior. And it may seem to be that way, but if you look at what actually is there, it cannot be resolved as actually being like that.
You know, it's just maybe a question of skillful practice, because this experiment, you could say, in the past few weeks of really not trying to direct my attention, it seems like the identification and belief has increased.
But that's just because you're 4.
Because I'm bored.
You're a self-obsessed drama queen.
Right.
In more technical terms.
Right. But it could be that using this obsessiveness to focus out could be more skillful yoga for me.
Maybe try it and see. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it happens. The point is, again, how intelligently you engage with it. It doesn't matter what happens. What matters is seeing it.
Right.
And you have to discover what seeing means.
There's a basic flaw in that, in as much as he says that he's trying to
Right.
do that. And that's the flaw. When you try,
Yeah, right off the bat.
you're already going in the wrong direction.
Or even trying is fine, but then if you do try, see that trying is not really trying.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Or if you try to not try, then see that not trying is just another way of looking at what you call trying. Trying and not trying are euphemisms for the same thing. Everything is miraculous energy presence. And whether it seems to be intentional or passive or external or internal or neurotic psychologically or objectively based is completely irrelevant. Because all of that is just narration. All of that is just spin doctoring.
This is kind of a useless question, but it's curiosity. Do you think somebody who's developmentally disabled could become self-realized?
Of course.
They don't generalize, I guess.
It depends. The qualities, the alignment of the qualities necessary for self-realization are unpredictable. All that has to happen is sufficient qualities have to align sufficiently for that to occur. And it's completely unpredictable what the prerequisites of that are, if anything. You can take a person who's very intelligent and very evolved and very whatever. I mean, you can stack up all the optimal qualities and they can remain clueless for their life. And you can take someone else who's a complete fuck up and neurotic and unbalanced and everything else, and maybe if the things line up right, bang. Because again, it's not the qualities you have, it's seeing what they are. And what sees those qualities is not within the personality.
Right.
What sees those qualities is what's seeing them anyway, which is transcendental and beyond the personal. What's seeing your experience is not your personality. Your personality is an object that appears within what is seeing it. What sees it is transcendental.
Think of Forrest Gump.
I mean, what sees your, what literally, what's seeing your spirit, what's looking through your eyes right now is transcendental. And so that has the power, has the inherent ability, that is pure intelligence. And that has the inherent ability to recognize and see through what this is, regardless of what the manifest qualities seem to be. You know, but you know, again, the whole issue of how realization happens and how realization can seem to not happen is very strange and unpredictable. But nonetheless, the important point is it can happen, and the conditions, the prerequisites necessary for that are entirely unpredictable. People who you would expect to be clueless can realize, and people who you would expect to be able to realize easily can remain clueless. Very strange. I mean, here's again, the qualities involved aren't simple alignments of manifest qualities. It includes the sort of orientation of the transcendental qualities.
Do you get the sense of like a subtle energy body
Sure.
or some kind of presence are happening, and that nothing that I might think has anything to do with what's actually happening there.
Absolutely.
And yet it's reflected in, you know, like apparent modes, like
Sure.
you know, somebody talking, like this has happened so often. We talking with someone and they kind of get something, you know, or I'll get something, and then some light comes on, like literally.
Sure.
You know, kind of synchronicity, I guess. Yeah.
Sure.
So there's that sense of like, oh yeah, that's kind of this is all
Yeah, absolutely
doing
so.
whatever it's doing, yeah.
Yeah, there is, you know, it's kind of arbitrary to qualify, but there are many layers of subtle bodies, that you could call them, that coexist within your being, within the system of your manifestation, and they are completely integrated with each other, and they're completely different from each other, and the world that they live in, each individually, is completely different than the worlds that all the other ones live in, and particularly in terms of their functioning and their causality and interaction. So psychic phenomena and all that sort of thing occur. It's not a physical phenomenon. That's a phenomena that occurs in subtle bodies, and so on and so forth. And synchronicities and all that are also, as you say, related similarly.
it's not just fantasy and delusion.
No.
Can synchronistic pointers be useful?
Can what?
Can synchronistic pointers be useful?
Yes, there's nothing but synchronistic. Everything, reality by its very nature is a synchronicity. So again, noticing that, having revelation of that is good noticing, is a good intelligent engagement.
I mean, this might be trying to be too concrete, but like sometimes it seems like the universe is giving something a green light, or like, you know,
Sure, absolutely.
or it's kind of saying like, hey, this is not.
Green light go. Or play with running the red lights. No, but no, sure, all of that. I mean, that's all on the table. You know, there's nothing but synchronicity. You can look at it as tides that work against each other, and they work against each other and for each other, and they're on a dynamic, changing basis. Or you can look at it in terms of alignments of astrological energies that sometimes are cacophonous and sometimes are synchronous, and so on. You can look at all phenomena on different levels as being embedded within this network of subtle energies. But it's all in you. It's all you. It's your manifestation. That's your true body. It's all of those aspects of energy dance. And so again, revelation reveals that, and you discover that is so, in a way that is so.
Sometimes it feels like I reach a choice point in front of me, and I can sort of choose between two different directions.
Sure.
And it's almost like I enter like a different dimension. Like is there more than one consensual reality of like different parallel?
There's infinite dimensions. There's no consensus reality. That there's consensus reality also pretense. You're continually jumping dimensions.
So I could, based on my energy system, move into a future where other people kind of vote in Trump versus another one where it's like how I live.
But there's no versus though, because you're only in one at a time. Explicitly.
But I can sort of choose which reality I go on if I could.
Yes, sure. Maybe so. If you can.
But if I can manage it, I could direct myself to reality where there's world peace before I die.
Sure, why not?
You're serious?
Yes. Of course, the caveat there is if you can manage it.
Is that a different aspiration than waking up?
Yes. But seeing that that's possible and discovering the way in which that's possible can be a good vehicle for intelligent engagement, which will result in revelation, which is waking up.
I've had the experience of seeming to be in two places at once, seeming to be in my body and seeming to be in a dream at the same time. And yet that's, that bothering, trying to describe that as,
Wait, you can't describe it and you don't need to, but this is an aspect of subtle bodies again.
Yeah.
Because a certain bandwidth of your subtle energy exists on what looks like a dream level. And that bandwidth is always in operation. You're always there, whether your focus of attention is there or not dominantly. And again, you multitask. It's not like you're in one bandwidth or another. You could be all over the place by degrees or however it is. As one, a byproduct of realization, or certainly a byproduct of ongoing revelation, is the acquisition of sort of waking up on these other levels, which gives you the ability, the acquisition of the functionality that you have available on those levels. Most of what I do in this kind of work is subtle energy work. It has very little to do with what I'm doing with my physical body or my physical personality.
What's the nature of the subtle energy work?
I'm sorry?
What's the nature of the subtle energy work?
I can't tell you with my physical body.
But it's being completely communicated right here, right now.
It's like a dance. You know, what I do in these meetings is I dance with you. And most of it is not physical dance.
Do you feel like I've had a workout by the end?
Some of it may take the guise of a sadistic tango.
Then you can dance to a masochism tango.
So you were saying a couple of sessions ago about how your experience is always like this enjoyable sort of caress of the of whatever the sense experience, right? And I was thinking about that in terms of like earlier today, like after the massage, there was this nice cat who wanted to be stroked and was, kept on putting its head into my hand, and there was this very pleasant thing there. And then I've been looking at the rug a little bit, and there's this way that there's the same sort of caress or a similar caress.
Yes.
Just in the visual.
Yes.
Yeah.
But be wary of supposing that is a simplistic interpretation. In other words, a luscious caress of energy presence can look like pain and being pissed off and being in a rage and being furious and being belligerent. And so you can't go by what it looks like in any simplistic term. It's not what it looks like, it's the orientation to it that matters. When you see that is energy and the way in which it's energy, it doesn't matter what form the energy takes. So it can be very unpleasant or ugly energy. The important thing is the seeing, not the flavor of the energy.
Well, once you see it, it's less unpleasant.
Well, yeah, it's paradoxical. Realization tends to smooth out the energy, but that's not the point. And it may or may not do so by degrees, depending upon your karma. Realization doesn't erase karma in any simple sense. Realization frees you from karma because you discover there's no such thing. But that doesn't make it disappear, because there never was any such thing. But since you see there's no such thing, you're no longer stuck in it, because there's no you and there's no it in the simple sense in which you may have thought there was when you felt like you were stuck in it. So that's why you get liberated from karma. But it doesn't necessarily negate or erase apparent karma.
It's like the dance continues.
It may seem to, but you see what it actually is, which is a vastly different thing than you may have once have thought. But that doesn't necessarily impact significantly what it looks like from an outside observer, you might say.
It could.
It could, yeah, exactly. It's unpredictable. I mean, ultimately, it's all down to the individual karma. But within any karmic matrix, realization is as good as it gets. So realization makes the maximum of what any karmic situation, but it's unpredictable what the specifics of what that may appear to be will end up being.
So like, it's kind of back to the subtle energy vibe thing. So like, let's say seeing the future, whatever that is,
Right.
that apparent ability or mode. So that's a function of some kind of part of your subtle energy.
Yes. Yes. And again, this is a karmic thing because different beings will have different degrees of resonance or power on different dimensions or bandwidths of the subtle energy. So different people, I mean, it's said that as yoga flowers, cities are developed. And this is what it refers to, because cities are basically just manifestations of the functionality of subtle energy. And in accordance with the individual's karma, as yoga unfolds, the individual will become aware of these different energy bandwidths and naturally the functionalities that are included in those in accordance with the karmic system that the individual's manifestation consists of, will sort of be activated. But again, that is, in terms of what that looks like, the operative aspect is the nature of the individual's karmic structure, karmic nature.
So realization allows you to apply to maximize your intelligence and application to that experience.
Yes, it maximizes your functionality within the range of your nature.
Yeah, because I have this experience of okay, there's this is more like in dream, where there's a recognition of okay, this is a different kind of light,
Right.
But it's not important in terms of where I've had training in some spiritual tradition systems, and it's like you start at A and then you need to get to B. It's just completely irrelevant
Right.
to that experience.
Right.
How we dance with what is continually changes our karma or our karmic matrix.
Yes.
And so sitting with you will condition our karma to be able to make another teacher, for example.
Sure. Doing anything shifts your energy balance. What you eat for breakfast shifts your energy balance. Everything shifts. It's a continually dynamic, self-adjusting system. It's an ongoing dance. And there's no irrelevancies in it.
And a function of intelligence is could be being intentional about that, which direction it wants to go.
Sure, maybe. You can play with that. I mean, intentionality is a very interesting and subtle thing. So you can explore it. But intentionality isn't a simple thing. It's not necessarily what it seems to be or what you think it is.
Where you can still kind of do.
You can
Do
do, yeah, well, play with it. Yeah, by all means, play with it. See what you can do. See what it really is in your reality. Different people, again, karmically have different potentials or different functionalities. So what one person is capable of doing, another person may not be. But it's unimportant because what's important, the only thing that's important is what you can do in your nature. So again, your unfoldment, your intelligent engagement, which results in revelation, which results in unfoldment, is the only thing that matters. And the shape that seems to take is irrelevant and is prefigured inherently in what you are.
Well, I've heard, like, if you do something, you feel like your soul lights up, so to speak. It's as poetic, where you feel, like light or vibrant. That's information. That's a good direction to go.
Sure. I mean, that's revelation itself right there.
Yeah.
Of course.
If you feel kind of dead-end, then it's suggesting to not go that direction.
Well, no, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
Deadness is just another opportunity for intelligent engagement. And if intelligent engagement with deadness may reveal it as a vibrant soul lighting up. Because there's nothing, there is no actual deadness. There's nothing but pure transcendental vibrancy, which can appear in any form. So, as humans, we're experts in qualifying good and bad, and vital and invital, and healthy and unhealthy, and success and failure. But it's a big mistake, because those are all just different energy flavors of transcendental radiant wholeness. And the important thing is to see that, and then you discover that fact within however it's appearing. And then you're free, relatively, of needing it to appear this way or that way.
Yeah, one thing that my mind keeps fixating on recently is, for example, the Buddha said that within the dream relative reality, it is worthwhile to want to try to be happy. It's a pretty fundamental human quality, wanting to be happy.
So what about that?
Well, like sitting with you, I kind of noticed like letting go of caring about being happy, so to speak.
Makes you happy?
No, it kind of leads to kind of just letting myself kind of be miserable or feel miserable, and then part of me says, "Oh, well, just explore that." And then part of me is like, "I don't know, maybe." So a lot of teachers also say being happy is a worthwhile pursuit.
Being happy is a worthwhile pursuit, but first learn what happy is. Happy is not what you think it is. If you settle for a simplistic or a stupid or a dull idea of happy, you're just chasing delusion. Find what real happiness is. Happiness is vitality. Happiness is power. Happiness is being. And that comes from revelation and integration with what you actually are.
It's not related to what you spend your time doing. Vitality.
No, it's the other way around. What you spend your time doing is related to what you actually are. Doesn't matter what you do. What you do is just like a shadow of your being. What matters is what you are. What you do is just follows along behind like a shadow. And it doesn't matter what you are. The point is to see it. You may be completely dark and evil and doomed to failure. I mean, I don't know. I'm being absurd here.
Sure.
But even if that was the case, seeing what that is will reveal transcendental fullness and complete joy and fulfillment,
But it seems
regardless of what you do or don't do.
But it seems like you discount paths that lead with behavior, because like you're saying, lead with noticing and behavior will follow.
Behavior is irrelevant.
But I mean, there's a whole branches of teaching that say that behavior, lead with behavior.
So what? That's not my concern.
Okay.
There's branches of teaching that say, do not pass go, do not collect $200. There's branches of teaching that say it's wrong to break any law. There's branches of teaching that say, whatever. I mean, pick your platitude. So what?
Well,
Branches of teaching is just more fantasies. This is about investigating what is actually here, which is not a teaching. Investigate for yourself what is here. Regardless of practices and teachings, and this guy says this and that guy says that, and nomenclature and Sanskrit and all this, who gives a shit? What this is that's here is the only thing that matters. It's already right here. You already are it. Familiarize yourself with it intelligently. Look for yourself and see what this is. See what you are. And then teaching schmeeching. Give your own teachings. Who gives a shit? And that's a good note to close on. Teaching schmeeching.
I've got a new term to ask you about next time.